Welcome to the session of Chaitanya Charitamrta, and we will begin with Chaitanya Charitamrita's first Mangalacharan and then Chaitanya Charitamrita's Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvidam Tam Sajivan Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Krupa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashadya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So seeking the blessings of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Chandra and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, we begin our journey towards Jagannath Purī. So if we remember, over the last 3 sessions, Chaitanya Mahāprabhu is actually traveling to Jagannath Purī. So we heard that how Sachi Mata requested Chaitanya Mahāprabhu when she met him for the first time after his taking sannyas. And she requested that rather than going to Vrindavan, why don't you make your base at Jagannath Purī? Because many devotees would keep coming and going from Bengal to Odisha and they can bring me some news about you. I would get to know how you are doing, because if you go to Vrindavan, then I'll not have any access at all. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu completely agreed to Mother Sachi's request, and he said yes. And that is how, after staying in Shantipur in the house of Advaita Acharya for almost a week, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left with 4 of his very dear devotees towards Jagannath Purī. So we were reading this journey from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj describes that Vrindavan Das Thakur, in his amazing biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is also known as Chaitanya Bhagavat, he has covered this portion in much detail. So in that desire to know more, because whatever we hear about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu our heart never gets satiated. So in desire to know more, we actually switched from Chaitanya Charitamrta to Chaitanya Bhagavat, and here we are continuing, and Krishna willing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would reach Jagannath Puri today. सर्वतीर्थ जल यथा बिंदु बिंदु आनी बिंदु सरोवर शिवा श्रीजिला आपानी.
Shiva brought drops of water from all the holy places and created the lake known as Bindu Sarovar. So if one takes bath in Shankar Vapi, so Shankar Vapi is the place where Mother Parvati was, after killing some demons, she was very, she slept as a cowherd girl and she was very thirsty. So Lord Shiva had used his trident and he punctured the top of a mountain, and there this Shankar Vapi was formed. So it is mentioned that if one takes bath in Shankar Vapi, then one will attain the same features as the Lord. And if one takes bath in Bindu Sarovar is described here that Lord Shiva brought water from all the holy tirthas into this one lake called Bindu Sarovar. So if one takes bath in Bindu Sarovar, then one attains the Lord's abode. So this is the glories of these two places.
Shiva Priya Sarovar Jani Shri Chaitanya Snanakari Visheshakari Ati Dhanya. Realizing that the lake was dear to Shiva, Sri Chaitanya eagerly took bath therein and made it glorious. Thereafter, the Lord went to see the manifestation of Shankara, whose followers were glorifying him in all directions. So I hope we all remember which place Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in now. Can you type it in the chat window? Where has he reached in his journey? Which place he has reached? Great. So Hari Prasad got it right. He is in Bhubaneswar. So this is the description of Bhubaneswar as how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has reached there. And there is this beautiful lake Bindu Sarovar, and he is there. Chaturdige sari sari grita deepa jwale niravadhi abhisheka haite che jale. There were rows of ghee lamps in the four directions, and the Shivalinga was being continuously bathed with water. The Lord and all the Vaishnavas were pleased to see the influence of Lord's dear devotee Shankar. Ye charan rase shiva vasana na jane, ye na prabhu nritya kare shiva vidyamane.
Shiva forgets to dress in the ecstasy he relishes by serving the lotus feet of that Supreme Lord who was now dancing before him. So Lord Shiva and Krishna or Vishnu or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have a very special relationship, and here it is mentioned that Lord Shiva derives so much of bliss and happiness and ecstasy when he is serving the Supreme Lord. And in the process, sometimes he forgets to dress properly also. And that same Lord, in whose service Lord Shiva develops such ecstasy, in front of him, the same Supreme Lord is now dancing. So imagine the happiness of Lord Shiva.
Nritya Gita Shiva Agre Koriya Ananda Se Ratri Rahila Se Grame Gaura Chandra.
After joyfully dancing and chanting before Shiva, Gaura Chandra passed that night in that village. So their relationship is that of master and servant, and they derive great bliss in each other's company and serving each other. So sometimes, people have this question, who's greater, Shiva or Krishna or Vishnu or Lord Ram? And then this point is quoted that Lord Ram worshipped Shivalinga, or Lord Shiva he worshipped. So because Lord Ram is worshipping Shiva, so Shiva must be greater. But we need to understand that their relationship is very deep, And in different parts of the Vedic scriptures, it is described, like Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described that how Lord Shiva worships Krishna or Vishnu, or he worships Shankarshan actually, and from there he receives this name Shankar, because he is always meditating on Sankarshan. So their relationship is that of love and affection and service and gratitude and so much of bliss and ecstasy. And their followers sometimes, have so much disagreement and fight among each other. But the lords are very happy and blissful. So here we see that Lord joyfully danced and chanted before Lord Shiva. And that's how he passed that night in that village.
Se Shiva Grame Prabhu Bhakta Vrinda Sange Shiva Linga Dekhi Dekhi Brahmile Narange. In that abode of Shiva, the Lord and his associates happily wandered about seeing the Shivalingas. So now this is another very fascinating thing about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the whole movement, the Bhakti movement he started and he gave us. Wherever he goes, it is a Shiva temple, it is a Vishnu temple, it is Krishna temple, it is Vrindavan, it is Jagannath Puri, it is on the way to Puri. One thing is constant: dancing, singing and eating. So these three things, you see so much emphasis is there. So this whole Bhakti Yoga, the process of Bhakti Yoga, it is so joyfully performed. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Su Sukham Kartum Avyayam, which means while performing, the person or the practitioner experiences sukha or happiness. Su Sukham Kartum Avyayam. And here we are seeing that, yes, exactly that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his achar and by his prachar, he is teaching us that how he is just dancing and singing and nice prasadam and next place and dancing and singing and nice prasad and third place and dancing and singing and nice prasadam. It just goes on and on and on.
And in between taking bath also in holy tirthas.
Yes.
So we also see that there is so much of respect that Lord Chaitanya is offering to Lord Shiva. So it is not that Lord Chaitanya is considering Lord Shiva as supreme, but he understands that Lord Shiva is a very, very exalted personality. He is a great devotee of the Lord, and therefore we must offer him all respects. So Lord Chaitanya is not going to Bhuvaneshwar. He is actually going to Jagannath Puri to have darshan of Jagannath. But on the way, whichever holy places is there, and here we have Bhuvaneshwar. So Lord is offering all his respects, and of course he is in great ecstasy seeing such an exalted Vaishnava being worshipped so opulently.
Actually, that way one very interesting thing is there, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I mean, what to talk of Lord Shiva, whom Bhagavatam describes as Vaishnava Nam Yatha Shambhu. He is the topmost Vaishnav. Even to all his associates, he is being so respectful. Like whatever the devotees are asking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is trying to accommodate everybody's request and desires and everything. So his reciprocation is so very, very perfect. Though Lord is not bound by his devotees, Lord is not compelled by the devotees, or he is under no obligation to follow what his devotees want. And yet we see here is the most munificent, most compassionate, most merciful Lord, who does not deny any of his devotees' request. Last session we were hearing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got little upset when he heard that Nityananda Prabhu broke his danda. And then after that, how he was talking to Nityananda Prabhu that you are my master and you can do whatever you want, you can do to me. So this is the same expression we will see that he would address to many, many devotees. So he's being so respectful towards all his devotees. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord Krishna himself, who has come to teach us by demonstration, by practical demonstration, as how we need to conduct ourselves. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us how respectful we must be towards the devotees.
Amanina man dena, to respect everyone and not expect respect in return.
Hey mate sarva pathe santoshe asite uttarila asi prabhu kamala purete.
In this way, the Lord happily traveled all the way and eventually arrived in Kamalapur.
तुइले ध्वज मात्र देखिले न दूरे प्रवेशिला प्रभु निज आनंद सागरे. As soon as the Lord saw the flag on top of the temple, he floated in an ocean of happiness. So now here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has arrived at Kamalapur and he could see the flag at the top of Jagannath temple. So from a distance, because this is a village which is ancient village which is there in the district of Purī. So from this place, Mahaprabhu had first darshan of the flag of Jagannath Puri. And what is the impact of seeing that flag? It is mentioned, Prabhu Nij Ananda Sagare. He was floating in Ananda Sagar. So imagine if there is an ocean of happiness. We have only experienced ocean of salt water. But here is an ocean of happiness, which indicates boundless, which indicates abundance. So much happiness he was experiencing just by having the darshan of the flag of Jagannath. Akathya adbhut prabhu kare na hunkara vishal garjana kampa sarvadeha bhara.
The Lord's loud roaring was wonderful and beyond description. His entire body began to tremble and he was unable to move. So that flag, it is understood that any paraphernalia of the Lord is non-different from the Lord. So there Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the flag. Imagine, we can just understand how anxious he was to reach Jagannath Puri, to have darshan of Lord Jagannath, and this was the first direct glimpse of the Lord's temple, that flag. And ocean of mercy, ocean of ecstasy and happiness, it emerged just by having darshan. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the experience of love of God which he is experiencing is extraordinary. Only Supreme Lord can experience such, can have such an experience, actually. Such intense experience. It is not possible for an ordinary human being to have.
Prasade radike matra chahite chahite chalile na prabhu shloka padite padite. The Lord then continued on, constantly looking at the temple and reciting verses. Now, hear carefully about Lord Gaurachandra's pastime of composing and reciting half of a verse. Prasadagre nivasitah purah smeravaktararvindo mamalokya smita suvadano balagopala.
Just look at the top of the temple, there in the form of a cowherd boy, with his face resembling a fully blossomed lotus. Lord Shri Krishna is looking at me and smiling sweetly. In this way, the beauty of his face is increasing. So this is the verse which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has compiled, and he's reciting this. And what he's saying? Just look at the top of the temple. That is where Lord Krishna is there. He's standing there in the form of a cowherd boy. And his face is so beautiful, just like a freshly blossomed lotus. And Lord is looking at me and he's smiling at me. And that way his beauty is increasing more and more.
Shloka punah punah padiya padiya achada khayena prabhu vivasha hoiya. Reciting this verse again and again, the Lord helplessly fell with great force to the ground. Even Ananta cannot describe the way he forcefully fell to the ground and the way he pathetically cried that day. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reaching Kamalapur and having darshan of the flag of Jagannath, he's floating in an ocean of happiness, and then he composed a verse where he is talking about how he can actually have the darshan of that cowherd boy. Now, how many of us, when we see the temple dome or the flag at the top of the temple, do we think that, okay, so this is not different from Krishna and Krishna is smiling right from there? So we can see, like, where do we stand? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, imagine what is happening to him. He is crying and he is forcefully falling on the ground, which means that he is experiencing so much of ecstasy within. That this is what is happening to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ihare se bali prema avatara, Esha Kati Chaitanya Vahi Anya Nahi Ara.
That is why he is called the incarnation of love of God. No one other than Sri Chaitanya has the power to display such love. So, after experiencing the flag, seeing the flag, and seeing the Lord and his smiling face, Lord Chaitanya developed such intense ecstasy that he fell, and it's mentioned that Ananta cannot describe the force with which he fell on the ground. And that is why he's being mentioned here, that's why he's mentioned as the incarnation of love of God. Prema Maya Avatar. Because no one else, A Shakti Chaitanya Vahi Anya Nahiya, no one else has this power to display so much love.
Patheyat dekhaye sukriti nargana, Tara bole eta sakshat narayana. Those pious persons who saw the Lord on the road said, he is directly Lord Narayan.
Narayan, Narayan.
Chaturdi ke bediya se bhakta gana, Ananda dharaya purna sabaranayana.
The devotees surrounded the Lord as they walked down the road. Everyone's eyes were filled with tears of ecstasy. So because Lord was naturally exhibiting such intense feelings of love, he was experiencing, and they were being exhibited in his body and the actions of the body. So everybody understood that Supreme Lord, and the devotees were surrounding the Lord, and seeing the Lord like this, their eyes were full of tears. Savichari danda patha premera aveshe praharati nete asi haila praveshe.
The road that could be covered in 1.5 hours took them 9 hours because of the Lord's absorption in ecstatic love. So this is how they were walking. Can you imagine 1.5 hour distance, and it took them 9 hours to cover because Lord was so deeply into ecstasy. He was reciting that shloka again and again. He was falling on the ground. He was crying, and he was just remembering Krishna. Complete absorption. Aile na matra prabhu athara nalaya, sarva bhava samvarna kaila gautaraya.
As soon as Lord Gauranga arrived at Athara Nala, he concealed the symptoms of his ecstatic love. The Lord peacefully sat down with his associates and humbly spoke to them.
So this is the place, Athar Nala, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has just arrived. Now Mahaprabhu, we will see what he will talk. And when we reach Athar Nala, we get just the feeling, okay, so we have almost reached Jagannath Puri. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Lord himself. Tumara ta amara korila bandhu kaja, dekhaila ani Jagannath Maharaja. You have all done a favor to me, for you have brought me to see Lord Jagannath. Now tell me whether you should go first to see Jagannath or I should go first. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, first he is expressing his gratitude to all the devotees who have come along with him, and he is giving complete credit to them that you have brought me to see Jagannath. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is not different from Jagannath, who can actually bring him to Jagannath? He has all the powers and potency to manifest directly there in front of Jagannath. and yet he is expressing his gratitude. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us how we need to inculcate this attitude of gratitude, and how we must always feel that gratitude for all the devotees who are around us, who are helping us in taking us towards Krishna. So he is thanking them, and then he is saying, so he is revealing his heart in a very discreet manner, and he is expressing that basically he wants to be alone when he is having darshan of Jagannath. So he is giving them a chance to choose that whether you all will go first and see Jagannath and I will follow you later, or I should go first and you will come later. Mukunda bale na tobe tumi aage aao, bhala boli chali lena Shri Gauranga Rao.
Mukunda said, then you should go first. Gauranga replied, all right, and then departed. The Lord walked like an intoxicated lion and soon entered within the town of Jagannath Purī. So Mukunda said, yes, Lord, please you go first. And then Lord immediately departed. And it's mentioned how he was walking like an intoxicated lion, and he entered within the town of Jagannath Purī.
Jai, Jai, Jai. So Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has reached Jagannath Puri, and we will reach back to Chaitanya Charitamrta. So we will go back to Chaitanya Charitamrta from this portion we covered from Chaitanya Bhagavat, and just give us a moment. We will share the next slide from Chaitanya Charitamrta, and we would enter into chapter number 4. Now chapter 4, again, it's a long chapter. And it's very, 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 very sweet chapter. Here we will see Krishna's personal dealing with his wonderful devotee. His name is Mādhavendra Purī. So how Krishna reciprocates, the deities reciprocate with the devotee. Not even like personally Krishna, but the deity form is having interaction here. So it's a very beautiful, enchanting, sweetest of all pastimes. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So this is chapter 4, Shri Mādhavendra Puri's devotional service. So this chapter, we are presenting here first half of the chapter. So 1 to 9 is prelude, and then 10 to 20 Lord Chaitanya reaches Remuna, and 21 to 169 the story of Mādhavendra Purī and the deities of Gopal and Gopinath. So two amazing deities, Gopalji and Gopinathji, and we will see how they reciprocate with Mādhavendra Purī. Yasmai datum choryan kshira bhandam, Gopinathah kshira chorabhidho bhut, Shri Gopalah pradurasid vashah san, Yat Premana tam Madhavendram natosmi. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Mādhavendra Purī, who was given a pot of sweet rice stolen by Shri Gopinath, celebrated thereafter as Kheer Chor. Being pleased by Mādhavendra Puri's love, Shri Gopal, the deity at Govardhan, appeared to the public vision. So here is a mention of two deities. One is Shri Gopinathji and other is Gopalji. So two deities and two wonderful things are happening here. Now these deities were originally installed by Vajra, who's the great grandson of Krishna.
Vajranab.
So Vajranab established these deities, and these deities, one of the deity who was actually hidden at Govardhan. So that deity itself was hiding at Govardhan, and he came in dream of Mādhavendra Purī, and he requested Mādhavendra Purī to take him out, and he became ready to be worshipped, to give darshan to one and all, to come into public vision, and there the deities tell Mādhavendra Purī that I have been waiting for you. So that is one. And the other equally fascinating pastime, we will see how Krishna becomes a thief for his devotee. So Krishna would steal a pot of sweet rice. So this Krishna was known as Gopinath earlier, and since he stole the pot of sweet rice, he gets this name Kheer Chor. So he's steals the kheer or a sweet rice pot for his devotee.
In Vrindavan pastime, he was stealing butter and curd and milk. And here in this pastime, for his devotee Mādhavendra Purī, he steals kheer.
Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
All glories to Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Prabhu, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya.
Niladri Gamana Jagannath Darshana, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya Prabhura Milana, Ye Sabo Lila Prabhur Das Vrindavana, Vistari Kariya Chena Uttama Varnana. The Lord went to Jagannath Puri and visited Lord Jagannath's temple. He also met Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. All these pastimes have been very elaborately explained by Vrindavan Das Thakur in his book Chaitanya Bhagvat.
So we'll be reading from Chaitanya Bhagvat.
When we come to that portion. Sahaje vichitra madhur Chaitanya vihara, Vrindavana dasa mukhe amritera dhara.
By nature, all the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very wonderful and sweet. And when they are described by Vrindavan's Thakur, they become like a shower of nectar. So already the activities of the Lord are very wonderful, very sweet. And when they are being described by Vrindavan's Thakur, then there is an additional sweetness. It's like intense shower of nectar.
Ateva taha varnile haya punarukti, dambakari varni yadi taiche nahi shakti.
Therefore, I very humbly submit that since these incidents have already been nicely described by Vrindavan's Thakur, I would be very proud to repeat the same thing. And this would not be very good. I do not have such powers. So here we see the humility of Krishnadas Kaviraj. He is saying, since these topics have been very wonderfully, sweetly and amazingly described by Vrindavandas Thakur, so if I repeat them here, it will just be, actually out of my pride. So that will not be good, so I should not do it. I don't have the power also.
Tanra sutre achete ha na kaila varnana, Yatha kathanchita kari se lila kathana. Some of the incidents he did not describe elaborately but only summarized. And these I shall try to describe in this book. So we see that again and again Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj, he keeps informing us that whatever Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, he will not describe those things, but whatever little bit portion here and there which is not described there, only that portion he is going to cover. So he is so very humble. He's taking a very, very humble position while writing Chaitanya Charitamrta.
And what a team effort.
Yeah. Ateva Tanra Paye Kori Namaskara, Tanra Paya Aparadha Na Hua Kamara.
I thus offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Vrindavandas Thakur. I hope that I will not offend his lotus feet by this action. So here even Krishnadas Kaviraj has already expressed that he will not be describing those incidents and events and lila which has already been described in Vrindavandas Thakur, and he will only be describing those which are not described in detail. And still, he is praying like this, that I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus of Vrindavandas Thakur, and I hope in doing this I will not offend him.
Mat Mahaprabhu Chalila Nila Chale, Chari Bhakta Sange Krishna Kirtan Kutuhale.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded towards Jagannath Puri with 4 of his devotees, and he chanted the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra, with great eagerness. So those of us who may not be aware, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would every day chant 100,000 names of the Lord. 100,000 names, 1 lakh names of the holy names of the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would personally chant, and apart from that he would sing and he will do kirtan and everything else also he would do. So this is how they were proceeding towards Jagannath Puri.
भिक्षा लागी एक दिन एक ग्राम घिया आपने बहुत अन्न आनिला मागिया. Each day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally went to a village and collected a great quantity of rice and other grains for the preparation of prasadam. So this particular aspect we read in Chaitanya Bhagavat also, as how it is described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was alone to maintain all his devotees, because he would go and people would get so attracted by his beauty and his charming persona and this wonderful aura that they would give so much in charity. So all that Mahaprabhu would bring and then they would prepare the prasadam.
And this is how they are proceeding towards Remuna.
पथे बड़ बड़ दानी विघ्न नाही करे तासा बारे कृपा करी आईला रे मुना रे.
There were many rivers on the way, and at each river there was a tax collector. The tax collectors did not hinder the Lord, however, and he showed them mercy. Finally, he reached the village of Remuna. So we saw when he was going towards Jagannath Puri, there were tax collectors and they're stopping him. But here we see that there were many rivers, many tax collectors, but none of them hindered the Lord. They did not put any vigna or an obstacle in the progress of the Lord, and Lord was very merciful. He blessed all of them, and finally he reached the village of Remuna.
रेमुणा ते गोपीनाथ परम मोहना भक्ति करी कैला प्रभु तांड्र दर्शना. The deity of Gopinath in the temple at Remuna was very attractive. Lord Chaitanya visited the temple and offered his obeisances with great devotion. So this temple of Remuna, this place Remuna, it is still there in Odisha. We were very fortunate. I think 2019, December 2019, we got an opportunity to personally visit this place, a very small place, beautiful temple and beautiful devotees. There we met some we had some very good memories there, wonderful devotees, and we also got to eat that kheer, which we will hear in this pastime becomes very significant later. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visits this place, Remuna. So just to remove the confusion, so we completed in Chaitanya Bhagavat Mahaprabhu's journey to Jagannath Puri. But here we have taken a little rewind. So in that journey, whichever portions were not covered in detail, as Krishnadas Kaviraj has mentioned, that those portions he is covering in detail. So if we remember there, we discussed in detail about the tax collector and one tax collector and how he stops the associates of Mahaprabhu, but he does not stop Mahaprabhu, and then he later asks that who is this person. So all those things, because it is described there, so here we saw just in one verse, Krishnadas Kaviraj mentions about tax collectors and he continues. But this pastime was not discussed in detail there, which happened at Remuna, and that is how it gets recorded here in Chaitanya Charitamrta. तांड्र पाद पद्मा निकट प्रणाम करिते तांड्र पुष्प चूड़ा पड़िला प्रभुर माथाते.
When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his obeisances at the lotus feet of the Gopinath deity, the helmet of flowers on the head of the Gopinath, the deity Gopinath, fell down and landed on the head of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went, offered his obeisances unto the Gopinath deity, and we can understand from this that that time there was not much distance, it seems. Because now when we visit, we cannot go close to the deity. From a distance only we have darshan. Like in Tirumala, earlier we could go closer. Still we could not go very close to the deity, but we could still go closer, several years back. And last when we went, it is like, somewhere the Lord is standing in some deep dark tunnel. That is how the darshans are there now. At least last when we had. So here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is able to have darshan of the deities from very close quarters, and when he offered his obeisances, the flower helmet, that is the mukut of the Lord, Pushpa Chuda, the decoration of the Lord on his head, it fell on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's head, from Gopinath's head to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's head.
Chudapana Mahaprabhu Ranandita Mana Bahu Nritya Gita Kaila Lana Bhakta Gana. When the deity's helmet fell upon his head, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very pleased, and thus he chanted and danced in various ways with his devotees. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy. Why? Because Krishna's Pushpa Chuda fell on Krishna. They are the same personality. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased.
Yeah, and here he is in the mood of a devotee, so he saw it as a special blessings of the Lord upon him. Prabhura
Prabhava dekhi prema rupa gana Vismata haila gopi nathe dasa gana.
All the servants of the deities were struck with wonder due to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intense love, his exquisite beauty, and his transcendental qualities. So all the sevadharis, the servants of Gopinath, there were so many devotees who were serving the deity of Gopinath. They were all wonderstruck. They were vismit, astonished by seeing the love that was being expressed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his intense singing and dancing, his bodily transformation. So they were just astonished by that. His beautiful form. I mean, if you see Lord Chaitanya's form, you cannot take your eyes away from that such exquisite beauty and his transcendental qualities.
Nana rupe priti kaila prabhura sevana Sei ratri taha prabhu karila vachana. Because of their love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they served him in many ways, and that night the Lord stayed at the temple of Gopinath. So this is a picture of the compound of the temple, how it looks now. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time, he stayed one night there. Mahaprasad Kshira Lobhe Rahila Prabhu Tatha Purva Ishwar Puri Tanre Kahi Yachin Katha.
The Lord remained there because he was very eager to receive the remnants of sweet rice offered to the Gopinath deity, having heard a narration from his spiritual master, Ishwar Puri, of what had once happened there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager for the Mahaprasad Kheer or Sheer or sweet rice of Gopinath deity, and especially because he had heard that wonderful narration from Ishwar Puri, from his spiritual master.
Shira Chora Gopinatha Prasiddha Tanama Bhakta Gane Kahe Prabhu Seita Akhyana. That deity was known widely as Kshir Chor Gopinath, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his devotees the story of how the deity became so famous. So how Gopinath deity became famous as Kshir Chor Gopinath. So that whole story, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that night when he stayed there, he discussed that story with all his associates, and he enjoyed and everyone was enjoying. So this is all Krishna consciousness in a nutshell. Like always remembering Krishna, always remembering his pastimes, glorifying Krishna, discussing Krishna with his devotees. Mat chitta mat gat prana bodhayantah parasparam. That with lot of love, the devotees, they gather and they don't discuss politics, they don't discuss sports, they don't discuss movies. What they discuss is Krishna Katha. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is personally establishing that he had darshan, he paid obeisances, he was very happy. He danced, he sang, he chanted, and he is talking about Krishna now. So this is how the whole life of a devotee in a nutshell it is.
And this pastime and other pastimes like this are also very important, because in the Vedic system, those who follow the Vedas, they understand that deities are non-different from Krishna. They are not just some stone or wood, but they are the Supreme Lord directly. And then we see that now there are so many other so-called religious systems worldwide, and they reject the deity worship, and they do not accept that. Some very prominent religions do that. Well, because they do not accept the Vedas, and their modes are more of tamogun, so they cannot understand this. How the Supreme Lord can manifest, because Lord is supremely powerful, and material energy is his own energy. If he wants, he can manifest in any form, in any material. So the Vedas describe that Lord deity can be carved out of certain materials which are approved, and then the devotees, they request the Lord to manifest in the deity form, and then they worship and serve the deity form. So here we see that this deity is Khirchor. This deity, although apparently made of stone, still moved, stole a cup of kheer that was offered to him and hid it from the pujari. So the deity moved, right? Then we have the story of Sakshi Gopal. We have another pastime of a deity in Alarnath, the main temple in Alarnath. This time when we went last December, so the pujaris was explaining that how the Lord's hands, unfortunately, when he was eating kheer and a pujari held his hand and his fingers burnt, and some hot rice of that sweet rice, or I think rice itself, and it fell on his body and on his face, and there is a mark on his face. And then he showed the hand also, as if it is burnt with that heat. So, I mean, somebody may say stone, but the Lord is there, and there are many, many pastimes in many, many temples of, where the deities perform such transcendental activities.
Purve Madhav Purira lagi Kshir Kaila Chori Ataiva Nama Haila Kshir Chor Hari. So this is how the deities gets the name, because of the lila what they perform. And what lila is he performing here? He is actually becoming a thief. And why is he becoming a thief? Because of the love of his devotee. He wanted to fulfill the desire of his devotee, and that is why he becomes a thief. So formerly the deity had stolen a pot of sweet rice for Mādhavendra Purī. Therefore, he became very famous as the Lord who stole the sweet rice. So from the next verse, we would begin the pastime of this Kheer Chor Gopinath. So though there are few minutes left, yet we would like to stop here, so that when we start the session in the next session, we pick up the story from the beginning, and we would try to see whatever huge portion or the full portion of that story we can, or the pastime we can complete in the next session. So I can see that 42 of us are attending here the session. I'm not very sure how many of you are there on the YouTube, but I would request all of you who are attending the session, who are attending the live session, or who are attending the recording of the session, that please do write us a message at the WhatsApp group, so that we get to know that you are listening. So there are some of you who write very religiously, and like Shruti Murli is one who would write a very detailed, comprehensive thing about the whole thing. So I want to hear from each one of you. We want to know what is your realization of the day. So we really, really feel very happy going through all your learnings. So I sincerely request you that whenever you are watching this session, if you are watching a recorded thing also, so kindly send us whatever your learning is, so that we know that it's making sense. And also on the YouTube, I mean, if you can leave your comments at the YouTube comment section, so that gets recorded, and later, future, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line also, if somebody visits that, and then they would get to know, and they would be benefited from your learning. So it's a humble request that please send it in the WhatsApp group and also on the YouTube comment section. So thank you all. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Also, today is a very, very special and auspicious day for all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. because today is the appearance of Srivas Thakur. So we know the Panchatattvas, and we know Srivas Thakur is one of these 5 tattvas. When we chant Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So this is the appearance day of Srivas Thakur, who's a personification or a representation of a devotee in this Panchatattva. So it's a very, very special and auspicious day. So all of us must pray to Srivas Thakur and pray for his mercy.
And we also have sent an email. So if your email IDs are part of a mailing list, you would have already received an email from us regarding today's appearance of Srivas Thakur. He is the expansion of Narad Muni, and a very, very special devotee. His glories are unlimited, and we already went through that particular pastime where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in fact, he was so fortunate that in his house, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inaugurated the Sankirtan movement. The Lord, the reason why Lord advented in this material world was to establish the Nam Sankirtan, and Lord started his mission from the house of Srivas Thakur. And Srivas Thakur was also such a dedicated devotee that once it so happened that Lord was performing his Sankirtan, and coincidentally Srivas Thakur's son, he left his body, he died. And the ladies of the house it's very natural for them to be so disturbed and perturbed. And when Srivas Thakur heard and he went in, he told that the passing away of my son could not have been as fortunate when the Lord of the universe is chanting and dancing in this house. In fact, I desire such passage, such death, where I am able to hear, and in the same place Lord of the universe is chanting and dancing. So this passage of my son is very fortunate, and he instructed the ladies of the house that you should not cry, because if you cry it will interrupt the Lord's pastime of chanting and dancing, and if that happens, then I will not remain alive. And then later Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feels that there is something wrong, and then he is informed by devotees that Srivas Thakur's son has left his body, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was astonished. What kind of a devotee is he? And then, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revived his son, and there was a conversation in that regard. So, with exemplary, exceptional inspiration to all of us, what kind of mood and attitude we should have in practicing a devotional service.
Also, there is one verse in Chaitanya Charitamrta which talks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eternally means always. So he is always present in 4 places. So these 4 places are Shachira Mandire, which means the temple of Sachi Mata, and then Nityananda Nritya, wherever Lord Nityananda Prabhu is dancing, and when the congregational chanting is happening in Srivas Angan. So the house of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, house of Srivas Thakur, or the Angan of courtyard of Srivas Thakur, where the congregational chanting is happening, and Raghav Pandit Ghare. So there are 4 places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eternally resides, always resides. Even now, in this very moment, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is personally present there. So one of those 4 places is Srivas Thakur's courtyard. So that is how wonderful Srivas Thakur is, and he is an exemplary Grihastha devotee who had family, who had like wife and children, and yet he dedicated completely himself to the service of the Supreme Lord. So let's seek his blessings on this most auspicious day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.